makinig sa akin. Tamang kabalaran ang kahihinat na natin. Bubukal sa iyong isipan, tagumpay na tatahakin. Isang pangarap na lubos, landas na iyong pagtutunguhan. Pangat na inaasam, di mapipigil ni numan. Maaabot lahat ng iyong inaasam. Kasipagan ng sagot, salat ka man sa kayamanan. Buksan ang pahina ng mga aklat ng karunungan. Edukasyon ating kailangan, kamamangan ating iwanan. Peace!
Ating lilipalin ang himbawangin.
Ating tanawin.
Bagong pag-asa ay muling tatanawin.
Kinabukasan pagtibayin. Pilitin mo gawin.
Puspos ang pagsisikap.
Pag-asa ay yakapin. Edukasyon ang kayamanan ng kahit ninuman. Isang pangarap ang tutupad. Pagsisikapan ng lahat.
Puspos ang pagsisikap.
Kaya mo yun, kaibigan.
Mabubuo isang
The COVID-19 pandemic has brought unprecedented changes to our usual ways of living. But the Department of Education remains unfazed by these challenges to fulfill the mission of Sulong Edukalidad, the rallying call for national effort to deliver quality basic education to all Filipinos, which involve aggressive reforms in the 4 key areas: the K-12 curriculum review and update, improving the learning environment, teachers upskilling and reskilling, and engagement of stakeholders for support and collaboration to move forward together as we prepare the education system for the future. The call for Sulong Edukalidad will continue, and we have built the framework of the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan, or the BELCP, to put the needs of the learners at top priority. DepEd's BELCP is the major response and commitment to protect the health, safety, and well-being of learners, teachers, and personnel. The plan aims to provide opportunities to continue education even in these trying times with a BELCP in place, supported by unprecedented number of diverse stakeholders from the academe, media, industry groups, NGOs, business and private individuals. Sulong Edukalidad will be able to sustain the aims in its reform for quality basic education. In our journey towards quality education, we have established the 4 pillars of aggressive reforms from the start, and we have been continuing to progress in these pillars. In improving the learning environment, we took action in the construction and rehabilitation of school buildings, ensured the availability of learning materials and equipment, and prioritized our last mile schools. The challenges of the pandemic also brought to light the urgent need to upgrade our ICT infrastructure to service the needs of education. In terms of the teachers upskilling and reskilling, we were able to establish more innovative professional standards for teachers and school heads. We have aligned the professional development of teachers with their career progression to track their development as part of the National Educators Academy of the Philippines transformation. With the launch of the Education Futures program, where we will be focusing on innovative actions and solutions to improve the state of our education, we are now more than ready to start a new journey and continue our fight for quality education for all Filipino learners. Finally, we've given high importance to the engagement of stakeholders for support and collaboration. In support of this, we have convened the Philippine Forum for Accessible Quality Basic Education, or the Education Forum, which will leverage other partnerships for education quality and strengthen partnership with the Philippine Normal University as the country's National Center for Teacher Education. The department has also been developing a professional development program for teachers and school leaders in order to equip them with the skills, materials, and data that will allow them to help their students prepare for PISA 2022. This intervention consists of the following components: online training for teachers and school leaders, development of learning materials and practice tests for students, deepening the analysis of the PISA 2018 results, and supporting school-level action research. Now that the year is about to end, our commitment to sulong edukalidad will continue and will be far from being gone. With a lot at stake, considering our new knowledge and experience from this year's challenges, we are equipped to face a new future. As we head on to the future where we will face many challenges and uncertainties, the department will always be the guardian of every Filipino learner's right to education.
Sino ba ang hindi naapektuhan? Sino ba ang hindi nag-alala? Sino ba ang hindi nalito? Lahat tayo ay naapektuhan. Lahat tayo ay nag-aalala. Lahat tayo ay nalito. Dahil binago ng pandemyang dulot ng COVID-19 ang paraan ng pamumuhay ng lahat ng mga Pilipino saan mang sektor ka nabibilang. Tumigil ang panandalian ang ating mga nakagawian. Tumigil ang lahat ng uri ng transaksyon. Tumigil ang lahat ng operasyon ng mga paaralan. Nakalilito. Nakakaba. Paano na ang kinabukasan ng mga kabataan? Paano na tayo sa hinaharap? Opisyal na nilulunsad ng Kagawaran ng Edukasyon sa pangunguna ng Office of the Undersecretary for Curriculum and Instruction ang DepEd Teaches. Ito ay isang online na programa na gagabay sa mga guro, tagapangasiwa, magulang at mag-aaral hinggil sa mga pagbabago sa batayang edukasyon ngayong new normal. Ang DepEd Teaches ay angkla sa sulong edukalidad na nakatuon sa apat na pangunahing pangangailangan ng mapunyaging reforma tungo sa makalidad na pagtuturo at pagkatuto. Una, pagre-review at pagsasapanahon ng kurikulum ng K-12. Ikalawa, pagpapaunlad ng kapaligirang pampagkatuto. Ikatlo, paglinang ng mga bagong kasanayan sa mga guro. At ang ikaapat, ang pakikipag-ugnay sa mga stakeholder para sa suporta at kolaborasyon. Sa pamamagitan ng virtual learning platform, ang DepEd Teaches ang magsisilbing bukas na komunidad ng pagsasanay na titipon sa mga guro, tagapamunong pang-edukasyon at sa sino mang may pagnanais sa pagtataguyod ng kalidad na edukasyon sa bansa at sa pagtagumpay ng bawat Pilipinong mag-aaral. Ang mga opisyal, education specialist, learning content expert at outstanding teacher ng DepEd ang magiging tagapanayam na magbabahagi ng kanilang kaalaman at kasanayan sa kurikulum, pagtuturo at pagkatuto, pagtataya at lahat ng kaugnay na mahalaga sa proseso ng pagtuturo at pagkatuto sa new normal. Bilang mga frontliner ng classroom, inaasahang magiging aktibo ang mga guro sa programang ito. Ang mga tema at paksa ay angkop sa kanilang pangangailangan at konteksto sa pamamagitan ng accessible na platform, ang social media. Sumali na sa OUCI family sa DepEd Teaches kung sama-sama mapahuhusay pa ang mga guro, Kung sama-sama, higit na malilinang natin ang mga mag-aaral.
It is once said that our technology, our machines are part of our humanity. We created them to extend and apply our knowledge, and that makes us unique as human beings. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to DepEd Teaches. Today, it is going to be another exciting segment as we discover trends and innovations in teaching and learning in the new normal. And we are live right now on DepEd Philippines Facebook page, DepEd Tayo, DepEd YouTube channel, and our very own DepEd Teaches. So come and join us in this meaningful afternoon as we talk about ICT integration in distance delivery modalities, strategies, and applicability. Good afternoon, Ma'am Ana. So what are your expectations in today's topic?
Pleasant afternoon, everyone. Hello, Sir July. So this episode for the last week of October will help us reflect and reimagine specific strategies and solutions on how we can harness the power of technology. It is no surprise, Sir July, that this new normal has made us more realize how important technology is in all aspects in life, like how we relate, how we work, how we communicate, and even more so, how we teach our learners. And if before there were some who were reluctant or adamant in using technology, but the situation we're into right now propelled us to embrace these changes, this technology, to teach ourselves and eventually becoming digital immigrants. Well, if some still believe that technology is a bane or like a curse, I would say for me it's otherwise. I honestly believe that it is a boon or a blessing if technologies are properly and effectively used for a common good.
I concur to that, Ma'am Ana. We see more value and benefits in using technology, especially if we consider the design and its usage to help people live a better life with ethical considerations. Since last year, we have attended several webinars about ICT, especially our teachers doing online teaching, and they have been using many applications in their online classes. But we should not limit ourselves to what we know already. So we just expand our choices and find other resources to make our instruction more interactive, engaging, and accessible to all.
I couldn't agree more, Sir July. Understandably, the emergence of coronavirus has dramatically accelerated the process of integrating EdTech as educators, not just here in the country but around the world, race to get online as fast as they can. But then the bigger question here is that what's an optimal quality technology integration actually looks like? So that's an important conversation to have because in a post-coronavirus world, there's more likely to be a greater emphasis on blended learning, even as we return to physical schools and take advantage of face-to-face opportunities.
Definitely, Ma'am Ana. Good technology integration isn't about using the fanciest tools. It's about being aware of the range of options and picking the right strategy for the lesson at hand. And we are blessed today because our discussion will be on the integration of technology in teaching and learning. But before we continue, let us have a short warm-up activity. So this time, we will ask questions related to ICT, and we would like our viewers to share with us their idea and answer in the comment section of our Facebook pages or in YouTube live chat. Again, we will ask you, our viewers, questions about ICT, and you just need to provide the answer after we give some clue or a clue to each of the item. And similar to our past priming activities, we will give 30 seconds for you to think and key in your answers. All
All
right.
right. That sounds good, Sir July. So I guess the instruction is already clear. So shall we start with question number 1? Please show the card now. Okay, so let me read to you the question. This model, developed by educational researchers Mishra and Kohler, is designed around the idea that content, what you teach, and pedagogy, how you teach, must be the basis for any technology that you plan to use in your classroom to enhance learning. What do you think is this model or framework in relation to ICT or EdTech? Clue, the answer has 5 letters. All right, so let's find out. The correct answer is TPAC model or TPACK model. So TPAC stands for Technological Pedagogical Content Knowledge. So this is the seminal piece on the TPAC model, was written in 2006 by Punya Mishra and Matthew Kohler in Technological Pedagogical Content Knowledge, a framework for teacher knowledge. So TPAC gives us 3 knowledge areas to consider: technology, pedagogy, and content knowledge. You know, Sir July, keeping technology as a separate knowledge set causes problems. But when we understand the framework of TPAC, we can integrate technology into the content and pedagogy of our classrooms. So the integration will help our students learn more effectively and have a more robust understanding about the subject.
That's indeed interesting, Ma'am Anna. TPAC model has been part of various recent researches and literatures about the importance of integrating technology in the delivery of instruction, may it be face-to-face or even in the remote learning. And more importantly, our learners today are well acquainted in digital tools and applications. So we can capitalize on these interests of our learners to make the instruction more engaging to them. So we could now have our second item now. We can show the card on the screen. So this model, created or developed by Dr. Ruben Pentedura, lays out 4 tiers of online learning and degrees of classroom technology integration, presented roughly in order of their sophistication and transformative power. So again, what do you think is this model or framework of ICT integration? A clue here, the answer has 4 letters. So 30 seconds, start now. All right, let us show the answer to this item. So this model that we are looking for is the SAMR model, which stands for Substitution, Augmentation, Modification, and Redefinition model. So this SAMR model is a framework that orders the strategies for classroom technology implementation into 4 stages. And in each stage of the SAMR model, the use of educational technology or EdTech becomes increasingly sophisticated. Substitution and augmentation on the first two stages are strategies used in EdTech to enhance learning and add value, whereas the modification and redefinition stages harness EdTech to transform learning and make new things possible. However, remember that you don't need always to have to redefine your students' learning. A few simple technological addition to any of the effective teaching strategy available might be what you need to make a difference.
I agree with that, Sir Jalai. Using technology in the classroom sends a clear message to our student. It shows them that we are trying to connect with them. We are connecting learning to this rapidly changing world outside the classroom walls, and we aren't afraid to adapt to a new challenge. So let's get creative with technology, and this will inspire us to teach better. All right, so to continue, let's have question number 3. Let me read to you. This framework describes and targets the use of technology to enhance learning that incorporates 5 interdependent characteristics of meaningful learning environments: active, collaborative, constructive, authentic, and goal-directed. What do you think is this framework? The answer contains 3 letters. Okay, were you able to guess the correct answer? Let's find out. So this model is what you call TIM or TIM, which stands for Technology Integration Matrix. So the Technology Integration Matrix provides a framework for describing and targeting the use of technology to enhance learning. So just like what is shown in the question, the team incorporates 5 interdependent characteristics. So we have active, collaborative, constructive, authentic, and goal-directed. These characteristics are associated with 5 levels of technology integration, starting from entry, adoption, adaptation, infusion, and transformation.
That is quite fascinating, Ma'am Ana, that this model incorporates or combines the levels of technology integration and the characteristics of meaningful learning. So students are ensured to have actively engaged in using technology as a tool rather than passively receiving information from technology, and as that the most essential goal of this model. Okay, so we can now proceed with our fourth and last item. So please show the card to our viewers. So this is a recently developed technology integration model whose framework assumes that there are 2 foundational questions that a teacher must ask about any technology being used in classrooms. And these include: what is the student's relationship to the technology? And how is the teacher's use of technology influencing traditional practice? So again, what do you think is this framework or model that would answer those 2 questions? And a clue here, it has 6 letters. So 30 seconds start now. Okay, so we can now reveal the answer to this item. So the framework that we are looking for is the PICRAT model or the PICRAT model, which stands for passive, interactive, creative, replaces, amplifies, transform model. So this framework considers the intersection of these two questions and is intended to foster discussions around what is the most effective use of technology for a particular lesson to maximize students' engagement and achievement. The student's relationship and the teacher's use of technology should be carefully examined through a lens of the learning goals that are to start with what you want the students to do or to achieve, and then to make the technology assist with that. Okay, so let's try to review the different EdTech models or frameworks that we have in our activity. So we have there the SAMR model, the TPAC model, the TIM model, and the PIT-RAT model. And these are just some of the models that we use as our tool in planning, designing, and implementing a classroom instruction aided with technology. Again, it is very important that we teachers must be in control and learners know self-regulation in using such technology following this kind of model or framework. And so at this point, we will now be meeting our resource speaker, another remarkable person who will help us have a deeper understanding of ICT integration in distance delivery modalities, its strategies, and applicability.
We are honored to have and to join us here on DepEd Teaches, Dr. Ferdinand Blancaflor Pitagan. Dr. Ferdinand Pitagan is the Dean of the School of Education at the National Teachers College with the innovative, adaptive, industry-ready undergraduate programs and the largest graduate teacher education program in NCR. He is a consultant at UNESCO, leading the team of experts in the policy design, strategy, training of the open educational resources, universal design for earning, policy for higher educational institutions in the Philippines project for national adoption. He is also the local consultant of USAID RTI in the assessment of DepEd Commons. In addition, he is a consultant of DepEd in the review of the K-12 curriculum program and CHED in the K-12 transition program. Dr. Pitagan was a Monbusho Scholar, a Japanese government scholarship under which he graduated with the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and Education from the International Christian University, Tokyo, Japan. He was also a graduate of the University of the Philippines, Diliman, with a degree of Master of Arts in Education, major in Educational Technology. In addition, he was a research fellow at Tokyo Gakugei University, Japan. He was the director of the Academic Support for Instructional Services and Technology Assist of De La Salle University, concurrently as Department Chair and Associate Professor at the Educational Leadership and Management Department. He was also an assistant professor at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, College of Education, and special science teacher at Philippine Science High School main campus.
Dr. Pitagan was also a reviewer of international journal publications, educational technology research and development, the SAGE Open Journal, International Journal for Educational Media and Technology, among others. He is also a convener of the first Media and Information Literacy Intensive Teacher Training Program. He is also a co-founder of the National Digital Educator Society, the founder of the Activated, an academic group that aims to foster a more creative and active mindset in designing and implementing innovative solutions for the Philippine classrooms. Furthermore, Dr. Pitagan also received international and national awards, notably the Best Filipino Teacher of the Support Your Dream, Japan, Model Student of Rotary International, and the Jerry Rojas Leadership Award. He also delivered talks conducts seminars and trainings, and produces instructional media resources on media and information literacy and e-learning in general. He envisions a community of practice in technology integration into education, highlighting inclusivity, flexibility, collaboration, and service for others. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome the Dean of the School of Teacher Education of the National Teachers College, none other than Dr. Ferdinand B. Pitagan.
Isang pinagpalang araw sa inyong lahat. Maraming salamat sa pag-attend ng DepEd Teaches. This is another learning experience that all of you are welcome so that we would continue processing the policies, program, and practices on how we would continue education during this pandemic and beyond. The topic for today would be ICT integration in distance delivery modalities, strategies, and applicability. My name is Ferdinand B. Pitagan. Before I proceed, allow me to talk about two of my passions. I am a consultant at UNESCO Paris, fostering open educational resources in the use of universal design for learning. We want resources that are free and open, just like your DepEd Commons, but at the same time, putting tenets of inclusive education, meaning to say, or our resources could be utilized even with special and those with disability students, may closed captioning, mayroong accessibility options sa website, and everything else. Right now, we are fostering a national policy on the adoption of OER in inclusive universal design in learning framework for national adoption. As you can see in the pictures, I am with our top higher educational institution officials. Ayan. So that we are now crafting a national policy for that adoption. Also, I am a local consultant of the DepEd Commons Assessment and Evaluation, sponsored by US Aid and RTI. We just finished our paper. Hopefully, we will come up with a paper on the initial evaluation and assessment of our DepEd Commons, which hopefully you are using to continue teaching and learning. At the same time, I am also the Dean of the National Teachers College under the School of Teacher Education. The School of Teacher Education has a very robust, agile, and flexible undergraduate program. At the graduate program, I think we are now the largest in NCR, not to mention the whole Philippines. We have around 14 programs. We have put efficiencies for recognition of prior learning and industry and academic partnership like LinkedIn Learning into our programs at the graduate level. If you want to join us or you're very interested, please drop us a line and we would be more than willing to accommodate. Thank you very much. For our topic for today, as I've mentioned, it would be ICT integration in distance delivery modalities. We would be talking about strategies and application on how you could harness the power of educational technology, ICT, to continue your teaching and learning. Today, we're going to look at the current state of Philippine education. Nasaan na ba tayo? Ano na ba ang ginagawa natin? Let's look at our curriculum, the modalities, and how do we assess and how do we lead and manage this classroom, this particular institution, or the multi-stakeholder engagement vis-a-vis the use of educational technology tools / ICT. And of course, we would have synthesis on what would be the corresponding strategies and applications or applicability that you might foster inside your classroom or inside your corresponding institution. Ayan. So the current state of Philippine education, when the pandemic was declared in March 2020, according to UNESCO, 28 million learners in the Philippines alone, 2 billion across the world, were affected by the closure. Right now, DepEd and CHED is looking into the possibility of opening again face-to-face and in on-site classroom, in-class classroom. So let's see about that. I think they are now piloting for DepEd, there are pilot schools, and for CHED, they are piloting now. I think courses with laboratories as the first one to have an on-site learning. And according to PIBED, this is very heartening. No, in junior high school, students move up despite having low proficiency. You could just imagine only 1% proficiency in math, 3% in English, 1% in science, 1%, 13% in Filipino, and only 10% proficiency in Araling Panlipunan. Even our parents are saying that 1 out of 4 parents are saying that their students are not really learning during this pandemic. And what is disheartening is 1.1 million of our students are not inside the classroom. Not to mention that ADB reported that 11 trillion pesos has been lost due in education due to the pandemic. And there is also around 1,300 schools closure because of the pandemic. Given this context, how do we now foster the use of technology, which has become the first line of defense of different nations across the world in order to continue education? Say, for example, as I have mentioned in the Philippines, DepEd Commons was rapidly prototyped and it was launched in March 2020, just 1 week or 2 weeks after the declaration of quarantine period. Now we have the Philippine Connect, which is also an OER portal of the Commission on Higher Education. So how do we do that? In 2020, we have the responses. I think in 2022, we have now recovery. At least now, we are trying to, put on or gather best practices on how we would continue and how we would move to that new normal, and 2022 and 2023 would be the configuration. I don't believe that we are in the new normal. We are still in the pandemic. Ito ba yung gusto nyong new normal? We don't have on-site or face-to-face learning. Diba? We are still in the pandemic. We are trying to configure now what would be that new normal. So how can we now put in action our ICT in reconfiguring that particular new normal in education? Let's start with your curriculum adjustments. When the pandemic was hit, MELCs was given by the Department of Education. They chopped around 60% of the number of competencies. When we talk of competencies, we are talking of knowledge, of skills, and even values, right? So it was around 16,000. It was chopped into around 6,000. They subsumed and deleted some competencies, but there are areas and courses and subjects that almost remain the same. Say, for example, in science, in math. So as an instructional designer and content experts, as teachers inside the classroom, we could see that there are still a lot of competency, even it was reduced to MELCs, diba? We have only 8 to 10 weeks now 8 to 10 weeks now of 1 quarter. And some of you are using printed module and some of you are in online classes. Given that amount of competency and given that amount of time, how do you now make sure that all of this would be learned by our students? My suggestion is that you try to unpack the curriculum. You try to look at the competency and identify what of this competency are lower order thinking skills, what are this competency are higher thinking skills, and you concentrate the lower order thinking skills in asynchronous independent learning, while the higher thinking skills, you concentrate that in sync session. During the sync session, you don't need to lecture what, when, how, why. You have to have that reflective, communicative, critical thinking, metacognitive activities, collaboration together with your content and your students. Because if you throw in a very critical question, you would know whether the students would know the remembering, understanding, and even applying competencies. Okay? If you throw them some, say for example, case scenario or thematic analysis of a particular subject, you would know whether they also gain the lower order competencies. Okay? And of course, there is some sort of integration. Upon identifying which are your lots, which are your hots, you could now combine either multidisciplinary or transdisciplinary across all courses, right? You could combine between courses or within courses. What are the competencies that could be subsumed? What are the competencies that would be combined? Okay. Later on, we would talk about how now we would do that in assessment. And because of this, we have lesson competencies. And in terms of ICT, there are ICT tools that you could use vis-a-vis the corresponding learning objective. Remember that in RCG, what was given to us was the competencies, the content standard, and the performance standards. But it is up to us to determine what would be the learning outcome and the learning objective. And in each learning objective, there could be a corresponding ICT tool to foster cognitive gains, whether it is in remembering and whether it is in creating. But we have to be very careful in the integration of that technology. Okay? Content and technology should go hand in hand. Say, for example, if you're using game-based learning, tuwan-tuwa yung mga bata, aliw na aliw sila sa Kahoot, sa Mentimeter, and whatnot, right? Pero, when you ask them about the content, about skills, and even the values that they should have accumulated during that period, they cannot answer. Bakit? Because the focus of the class becomes the technology. So there are a gamut of available tools. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. There is a gamut of available ICT tools in each of the cognitive domains, in each of the cognitive gains, in each of that. But we have to be very careful that it should be seamlessly convergent with content in order to provide that heightened learning experience, to have that engagement to affect heightened learning. Hindi po pwedeng yung be all and end all of your lecture, of your synchronous session, and even your independent learning would be all about technology. Technology is a conduit for learning. A PowerPoint presentation is a glorified blackboard, right? The presence of technology would not guarantee learning. So it should be the seamless integration of technology, of all this technology, into your corresponding learning objectives. Ako nga sinasabi ko sa mga teachers, when you are in synchronous session, kailangan utilizing any of these tools, kailangan every 5 minutes, there should be some sort of student engagement. Either you call on the students to answer a critical thinking questions, or you put their game-based or collaborative platforms where everyone would be in small groups, breakout rooms, etc., etc. Otherwise, there would be no heightened engagements. If the students would not open their camera, their audio devices, you wouldn't know if you are lecturing for 30 minutes. Most probably they are asleep or they are playing ML or whatever they're doing, but they are not listening to you. Remember that these are tech-savvy, media-savvy millennials and Gen Z. They know their technology, they know their way around. And if you're using Flip Classroom, you already given them all the essential references, video materials, skill building activities. So thereby, if you're going to use all these ICT tools, make sure that they would foster higher order thinking skills when it comes to synchronous session and even during the independent asynchronous individualized session. Okay? So that would be your curriculum adjustment. We cannot teach now the way we were taught. Teachers would not now given that freedom to lecture for 30 minutes without interruption. Your students will get bored because you don't see them. This is technology mediated, etc., etc. Okay? And of course, ayan, our learning modalities, no? DepEd has come up with different modalities because we are, our archipelago and access to technology and bandwidth is very, very varied in terms of the different types of learners. During this pandemic, I think we have learners who have full access to technology and bandwidth, learners who have intermittent access to technology, and learners who have really, really no access to technology. And because of that, we could foster now different learning modalities. It could be residential or home-based learning, where there is, provisions would be face-to-face, but the remote provision would be very limited or less, or we have blended. This could be face-to-face provisions or and your distance remote provisions. It could be 50-50 or 60-40. According to literature, there is no defined percentage on how we would blend modality. And of course, online learning, very, very limited yung face-to-face provisions. But there is heightened remote or distance learning. And in DepEd, we have this distance learning modalities. We have your totally online digital modalities. We have also your offline modalities. In distance learning, we have also harnessed the power of radio and television through mass media. Okay? And then we have printable modules. They are called printed modules. Don't call it, if you're talking about the printed module, this is not modular education, because even in online learning, we are also in modular education. When we talk of modular education, we're trying to chunk content it into manageable modules so that it would be easily delivered and understood by our learners. And of course, we have blended. You could blend printed with that of online, with that of TV and radio. And right now, we have your homeschooling. Most of us now are home-based learning, either in printed module or in distance learning. In terms of ICT integration, there should be a congruency across different modalities to foster inclusive and holistic education. If your institution, if you're a teacher who's also conducting online learning as well as printed modules, there should be congruency in content, in assessment. What is different should be the learning experience. So whatever references you put in online learning should also be present in the printed module. Your learning objectives in online learning should also be present in printed module. It should have congruency with DepEd TV. It should have congruency with DepEd radio. If that is the modality that some students are using, even your assessment should have that congruency. Otherwise, we are not only fostering digital divide, because there are those who do have access, but we are also fostering a very non-inclusive education. We have to make sure that no matter what the modality of students, they would have the same learning gains. They would have the same heightened learning through the use of ICT. Hindi po pwede na yung online ay lamang na lamang at iwan na iwan yung nasa printed module. Of course, the printed module would not have video materials or interactive simulation for skill building. They could find it in DepEd TV or DepEd Radio as supplementary or complementary resource. But the learning objectives, the references, the assessment should be congruent, if not the same. If not the same. Okay? And yeah. Of course, in terms of assessment and evaluation, di ba sabi ng DepEd sa atin, okay, for the last school year, you are only required to compute for the performance task and the written work. There will be no grade for attendance, for long tests, departmental tests, etc., etc. Because we have to rethink now how we do assessment, how we do formative and summative assessment, or the combination of both, or the combination. Because our assessment now is technology mediated, it should be more on reflection, more on peer assessment, self-assessment, more on task-based and outcome-based assessment, more on portfolio to assess learning, to assess learning. But if we're going to go back to our curriculum adjustment, make sure that this assessment tool, may it be formative or summative, is congruent again to our competency and to our learning objective. We may not be questioning, diba? We may not be questioning what, when, and how, but we have to make sure that our students were able to know, remember, and even apply those corresponding basic knowledge, And another thing that we could foster is having the 21st century skill embedded in our assessment, that foundational skills, that competencies, and then character qualities. So these are your knowledge, these are your skills, and these are your values. We really have to test them even in the use of ICT if they were able to acquire this corresponding 21st century skills. Another thing that we could do in order for the whole gamut of assessment to be very, very effective is making it inter-course, or the integration among courses. Say, for example, it could be thematic in nature. You're going to create a portfolio about COVID-19. The write-up would be checked by English competencies. The statistics would be checked by math competencies. The technicalities of that online portfolio would be checked by the IT or the computer subject. And it could be congruent to history, because there is a whole gamut of history of pandemic across the world, to be checked by social sciences. So that integration in competency is also very, very highly desired. If we're going to do that, there will be less coursework, thereby there would be less stress among our students. So napapansin natin, very stressful na nga sila. Imagine nyo, if there are 8 courses, then every week may written work ang bawat courses, tapos may PETA pa sila at the end of the quarter. Diba? This is technology mediated, ICT integrated. Diba? When there is no guarantee that there would always be access. And in terms of competency, there is also a whole gamut of ICT tools for assessment. May it be game-based, skill building, may it be for knowledge-based, may it be for simulation, may it be interactive. There is a whole gamut of ICT tools, again, that you could utilize for your assessment. All of these tools and their corresponding website, I can give it to you through the Facebook group, in order for you to experiment and see how this could be again seamlessly integrated into your corresponding classroom. Remember that these platforms could be used for assessment. They could also be used for lesson presentation. Say, for example, a Kahoot questions or a Kahoot question, after everyone was able to answer, you could now discuss, oh, why is this your answer? Why are you wrong? Why are you right? What do you think should be the answer? This could also be utilize the assessment platforms could also be utilized as your presentation platforms. We just have to be very, very creative on how we would utilize these corresponding ICT tools. And lastly, of course, we have to foster leadership and management. We have to affect that resiliency and flexibility and change management. As teachers, we are not always right. Remember that these are tech savvy students. The available information because of ICT available to you is also available to them. And ICT has fostered a more centered learning environment. The students now, given the corresponding references, video materials, skill building activity, and assessment, would decide on what to learn, when to learn, how to learn. So thereby, we provide flexibility. We have to tell them that they have to be also resilient. Diba? No matter what, whether there are, miscommunications among group members or the teachers was absent because of some health and wellness concerns, if there are no access to internet because of typhoon, etc., they have to be very, very resilient. And that change management, the pandemic accelerated the use of educational technology. Dati, when you ask teachers, are you using technology inside your classroom? Yes, I'm using PowerPoint presentation. I'm using YouTube videos, right? But now we have a whole gamut of simulations, webinars. We have a whole gamut of game-based learning that you could easily integrate into your education. So that organizational change, that change in mindset, we have to have that growth mindset that we are lifelong learners. We are welcoming of change, and at the same time, we are also adamant that we would commit mistakes as teachers in terms of ICT because it is continuous. Technology is continuously evolving. So we have to continuously, and sometimes it's a hit and miss, especially for those of you who are trying it the first time. And it's okay. It's okay to commit mistakes, as that is part of being a change manager. That is part of being growth mindset. That is part of being resilient and flexible. You have to commit your mistakes and then put on solutions. Learn from the mistake to foster a more robust, agile best practice. Okay? So, as a leader also, yan, as teachers, I want you also to be transformative in nature. Okay? So, you have to have that role model. If you're saying to your students that they have to use ICT, then you have to model that ICT integration, that ICT use. You have to walk the talk. You have to inspire them so that they will also be inspired to explore other options of learning, to explore other references, to explore other skill building activities because they are readily available through ICT. And of course, you have to have that genuine concern for others. As teachers, lagi naman tayong ganyan. But just as important would be your individual consideration for yourself as teachers. Sometimes as teachers, lahat mas importante. Mas importante ang bata, ang parents, si principal, everything else. But as teachers, part of being transformational is also self-love. Okay? You have to also put processes for efficiency and effectiveness on how you take care of yourself. That is part of being transformative. And of course, you have to always innovate inside the classroom. Diba? You could only use Kahoot for so many times. You could only use Mentimeter for so many times. You could only use this corresponding skill building so many times. Right? So you need to continue innovating. Okay? Because as I've mentioned, technology is also continuously innovating. Okay? Ayan. Sige. So, let's look at our ICT for leadership and management. So you could use a learning management system. You could use a course management system. Okay. You could use also, your Facebook group or your group chats, your Hangout groups, your Viber groups to foster communication, creativity, even critical thinking among your students. But you have to make sure that you facilitate and moderate them accordingly. You manage them accordingly. All this ICT. If you are using a Google Classroom and you have an asynchronous discussion, make sure that you monitor the discussion. Otherwise, there will be students who will be lurkers. You would not see that there are emergent leaders in that particular um, discussion forum. I will do this. I will submit this. Or there could be someone who is being bullied inside your Facebook group, but you don't know because you are not moderating it, facilitating it efficiently. So if you decide to adopt any of the corresponding ICT platforms for leadership and management, make sure that you know the facilitation, make sure that you know net etiquette, and you also reinforce this to your students. And make sure all platforms are being utilized for heightened learning. Okay, it could be some form of socialization. Yes, of course. It could be a form for collaboration, but make sure that the teacher presence is always there. Is always there. Baka mamaya may nagbubuli na. Baka mamaya may naglalagay na ng pornographic link, etc. etc. Unaware si teacher kasi hindi man lang sinisilip yung learning management system. It's just becomes a submission platform. Doon lang isasubmit, doon lang isasubmit. No other activity, etc. etc. Okay? Very, very good. Okay. So, let's have a synthesis of everything that we have discussed for today. Number one, there should be a flexible adaptive analysis, design, implementation, and evaluation of ICT tools and resources for teaching and learning. You should know what corresponding ICT tool is good for this corresponding lesson objective. Again, the presence of technology would not guarantee learning. Sometimes it becomes a distraction. So there should be a robust analysis knowing your learner, right? Knowing their prior competencies, knowing their technology access, okay, should be a consideration before you decide on the ICT tool. Baka mamaya gusto nyo mag-game-based, di ba? Tapos ang 10 minutes, ang bago sumagot, 10 seconds lang kasi ikaw mismo teacher, ang bilis ng internet mo. Pero yung 10 seconds na yun, maglo-load pa lang yung buong klase. Di ba? Instead that it foster collaboration, competitiveness, it becomes another reason for the digital divide. So you have to be very, very mindful of the technical access implication of ICT tools and resources. Number two, there is a wealth of powerful ICT tools and resources that could be integrated across curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment. Talagang wealth yan. There are so many open educational resources when we talk of OER. These are educational resources that are for free, that you could easily use. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just have to tap on portals for OER or portals for your corresponding LMS. So all you need to do again is to go back to your learning objective and how you envision to provide that learning experience in terms of your curriculum, in terms of your pedagogy, and in terms of your assessment. And there should be a congruency, lagi kong sinasabi, across different distant learning modalities. Okay? So again, if you're doing online learning, printed module, even radio and television, There should be a congruency of learning objective, congruency of references, and even assessment. Ang maiiba lang dyan would be pedagogy or the learning experience because they are interacting with different material tools and resources. Okay. But the learning as much as possible should be the same. And an instructional designer, content expert, and assessor, as teachers, we have to make sure that it would foster an inclusive, holistic education. Okay? And of course, ayan, it should be seamlessly integrated into lesson activities to affect uh, heightened learning. As I've mentioned, hindi dapat nag-enjoy lang sila sa technology, nag-enjoy lang sila sa paggamit ng ICT. More than the enjoyment is they should be able to acquire that knowledge, that skills, and even that value. Hindi po pwede pag tinanong mo yung bata, oh, what have you learned? Ay, ang saya-saya po. And that's it. Or what have you learned? Ano, and that's it. Kasi ang naaalala lang niya is yung technology that were used inside that corresponding lesson activity. So dapat seamless. Ang tawag nga natin diyan e-learning, 'di ba? Yung E is for electronic pero E lang siya. Madaming words yung learning kasi that should be the focus of that integration, that seamless integration. And next one, ayan. Education would be an empirical part during this pandemic and even after the pandemic. Believe me when I say that the whole world is now trying to reconfigure how we would continue education. What would be that new normal? And believe me also, the technology would be an empirical part of that. We cannot go back to the way we were teaching. We cannot teach the way we were taught. You could just imagine in sync session, you would be talking for 30 minutes. Baka tulog na yung bata. Baka nag-EML na sila, naglalaro na sila. But technology would be an empirical part of that continuation of education. Okay? Right now, academic institutions are looking at how we would integrate technology. Dalawang araw lang bang papasok, and then the three days would be for technology mediated education. Para kunyari, yung grade 1 lang ang papasok ng Monday, grade 1 and grade 6, grade 2 and grade 7 lang ang papasok ng Monday. Para there could still be some security measures, and the rest would be technology mediated. So technology would be, ICT would be an integral part now during the pandemic and even after. And the last one would be, technology would not replace the teacher inside the classroom, right? Because of our human touch, because of our role modeling, diba? Because of our motherly love. No amount of technology could replicate that. But always remember that teachers who would not integrate technology, ICT, into their classroom would be replaced by those who do, would be replaced by those who do. Okay? Thank you very much. And lastly, during this pandemic, more so after, we need hybrid, flexible teachers like you who have that expertise in curriculum. When we talk of curriculum, we're talking of competencies, we're talking of learning objectives, we're talking of learning outcomes. That learning modality, it could be printed module, it could be online, it could be blended, it could be through the use of mass media education. Assessment, it could be an integrative assessment, it could be authentic assessment, it could be formative and summative assessment, and of course, that leadership and management to provide distance learning options. So whatever is access available to the students, we should be able to give it to them with technology or ICT integration. And the end goal of everything would be heightened learning. Okay? I hope you learn a thing or two from this corresponding lecture. I would like to thank DepEd for inviting me. And mulit-muli ang aming pagsaludo sa lahat ng gurong Pilipino. Alam namin ang hirap na dinadanas nyo sa loob ng classroom, ang pagiging sundalo sa paglaban sa giyera ng pandemya. Ako talaga ang aming pagsaludo sa tuwi-tuwi na pagpapatuloy ng edukasyon dahil sa inyo. Lagi po kayong mag-iingat dahil ang COVID, kahit bumababa ng case, ay ating kapitbahay, minsan ay kasambahay. Kaya ang pag-iingat ay lagi-laging dapat naroon pa. And again, this is Ferdinand Pitagan saying, mabuhay ang gurong Pilipino, mabuhay po tayong lahat, at mabuhay po ang bansang Pilipinas. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ferdinand Pitagan, for a comprehensive discussion. We've learned so much about ICT integration and the important ideas and insights for its applicability. You have provided us a wide array of options in choosing ICT tools and online management systems, as well as pointing that there should be a flexible, adaptive analysis, design, implementation, and evaluation of the ICT tools and resources to be integrated in classrooms suited to the context of the learners and of the learning environment. So once again, thank you so much, Dr. Pitagan. And so to our live audience on DepEd Teaches Facebook page and the rest of the social media platforms, don't forget to use or to share your insights and comments using the hashtag I support DepEd Teaches, and hashtag DepEd Teaches episode 42. You can also share your selfie post while you were listening in today's presentation, and we love to hear all your feedback.
Thank you very much again, Dr. Ferdinand Pitagan. So today is the last episode under the theme Innovations and Trends in the New Normal. I hope you've enjoyed all our sessions this month. Hence, we will have our evaluation. And if you pass it, you get your certificate signed none other than by our dear Yusek Justado San Antonio. So you can see on the screen the link, or you can scan the QR code to access the evaluation. If you need to review and you missed some of the highlights of our 4 episodes, starting from episode 39 of today's episode, just always visit our official Facebook page, the DepEd Teaches, to watch these incredible presentations we've had for this month of October. So the evaluation is open now, and it can be accessed until Saturday midnight. So you have 2 more days to prepare and review so you can get the passing score. And just give us more time to send your certificates to your email. Make sure that you encode and type in your correct name and email address. So that wraps up our discussion today, and we hope it was another fruitful and invigorating learning experience for all our solid viewers here on DepEd Teaches. Once again, thank you, teachers.
On behalf of the curriculum and instruction strand, thank you, dear teachers, for spending your afternoon with us. Remember, technology has changed dramatically the quality of our lives, but technology cannot replace human intelligence. And more so, technology can never replace a good teacher. And so our mission is for continuous professional development for our educators, because here on DepEd Teaches, our mission is about empowering teachers, enabling learners. See you again next week for a new theme as we welcome the month of November. Keep safe, everyone, and a blessed afternoon.